We are recording. All right.
All right.
We're live.
Thanks
Not really
for
live,
having
but
me.
yes. So what's going on in Jensen, Alaura?
Well, there's a lot of changes, not only in Jensen, but really in all of Martin County. And if you want to extend it past Martin County, all of Florida, really. Thanks to the Senate Bill 102 that's been voted in this earlier this year. So there's been a lot of development. And we saw, it was like all of a sudden you see all these yellow signs going up all over the place
everywhere
for rezoning or this development or this or that. So Kiki Sotak, or Katie Sotak, we call her Kiki, decided to give a call on one of those signs that was actually located across from Snook in Jensen.
When was that?
Oh gosh, I want to say that was March that she called on that. So she called, she got the information, and what they were proposing was 80 or so units in that 5.5 acres, as well as a shopping plaza and a restaurant on the east side of Indian River Drive there. There's a little small strip of land that they purchased. They also have 3.3.
Give me some frame of reference for people who have no idea where this is going. What's it called?
Riverlight, it's
right?
called Riverlight. It's by New Urban Towns Development, LLC. They've got developments all over the place. They actually have a development here in Stuart. If you're familiar with downtown Stuart, they have the little development there at the Sailfish Fountain. What is it called? Azul or something like that. Those apartments that went up in that odd little pie slice-shaped piece of land
where the bar was,
where literally you didn't think you could fit anything. So those are actually rentals. We're not sure yet if, I believe only a few of these units that they're proposing on this parcel in Jensen will be rentals.
Is there, have they announced, has Marcella said this is what's going in there yet?
Well,
in terms of numbers of units and types of units? And
they proposed 78 units. This was at the first NAC meeting on, I believe it was June 28th. And we had a pretty good turnout for the meeting. And that's when they showed us the original renderings. So the original renderings, I believe it was 78 units of multifamily homes. And then the little piece of
rentals or?
I believe only a few of the studios are rentals and
Gotcha.
the rest are to be purchased. So they've got like a mix of townhomes. And then I want to say it was only 6 or 8 studios that they had that were going to be rentals, like on the top of the townhomes.
How big is the parcel that you're talking about?
The parcel, the land portion, which is west of Indian River Drive, is 5.5 acres. Then they have 3.3 acres of submerged land under the water there on the east side of Indian River Drive. Mm-hmm. So if you're familiar with Jensen and you go south of the Causeway Bridge, there's a lot of empty vacant land there. It's been vacant for a while, and you'll see a vacant little building, a small building to the south of Snook. So they purchased that land that small building sits on. That small building back in the 80s was actually New England Fish Market. And then after that, it was a jet ski rental place. And then it's been abandoned for quite some time. So according to zoning paperwork, I think it's only some portions of that land on the east side of the drive there is only 25 feet wide. So there's a lot of concerns. Obviously, we care a lot about our river in Jensen. I think that a lot of people know that we're kind of like a sister community to Port Salerno. We do a lot of fishing, a lot of river activities.
That's how I think of Jensen.
Yeah, we're like a sister community to Port Salerno, of all the little local municipalities.
A little more surfy.
Right. A little bit more beachy.
Yeah.
But we're kind of all the local municipalities, Palm City, Hope Sound, Stuart, Port Salerno, and Jensen are the most similar, I believe, in regards to what people do for a living. We have a lot of fishers in Jensen, just like Port Salerno. And if you go to Jensen any given time of day, you see people active outside all the time, walking, riding their bikes, walking their dogs. I know I have a small Chihuahua and she goes with me everywhere. The whole town knows pepperoni. So that's one
pepperoni.
Yeah, pepperoni, like the pizza. Awesome. So that's one of the appeals of our town is we love our nature. We love our water, our river. We love that it's dog friendly. We love that most of the bars are outside. Most of the restaurants are outside.
So what the main criticism is going to be is why not this project? What's wrong overall with River Light? What are residents, and I know not everybody's here, but I do feel like you have a good pulse on how Jensen Beach feels about this.
Right.
What's wrong with this? How could it be better?
Oh,
why is it not a good fit?
Well, so, you've got so many different opinions on things like this. So when you look at this, you've got a few different silos. You've got the environmental silo. You're going to have people that are really advocating for the water and the environment. You've got people that are upset that there's not enough parking for downtown already. And then if you add a 78 unit development with a shopping plaza and a restaurant, what is that going to do for parking? So you've got parking, you've got environmental, you've also got the people that are upset that those houses are probably going to be vacant half the year. They're not going to be affordable. It's a waterfront community. It's going to more than likely be priced out of the range of most of Jensen Beach residents. So it'll probably be sold out of state, probably sit empty half the year. A lot of people have asked why there hasn't been a hotel put there or something that would bring tax revenue to Jensen, or, if it was some kind of a hotel of some sort, people would be visiting and walking to downtown, spending money in downtown. So it's very important when you're thinking about things like this, you're going to have all sorts of people that are upset for different reasons. Traffic's another silo. We already struggle with traffic to get to the beach, especially in season. If you don't get to the beach before 8:00 or on the island before 8:00, you're stuck on that causeway for hours. So they've said that it would probably take about 5 years, which really means 5 to 10 years, to build this development, which would really, really kind of gunk up traffic in that area. And it's right there at the causeway. We only have 2 roads going north and south. You've got Indian River Drive, and then you've got Pineapple. So they're building.
It does seem like there's not really, where do the people go?
Right. And we're already
not a developer.
Right. And we're already struggling with parking in downtown Jensen. I rarely go out in season because I'm driving around for 20, 30 minutes looking for a parking spot, just to go to my favorite restaurant or go have a drink with friends.
And how many acres? Sorry.
5.5 on the land portion.
78 units.
Yes.
What did they say about parking? They're going to do
garage? No,
do they have enough parking for
no garage, no garage. From what I have, from the research I've done when I pulled records from the county, and zoning, they proposed, I believe it was 176 or 178, around that number of parking places. So what they're saying is that most of the units will have a garage, a single car garage, and that they're going to allow the parallel spots on the road to be public parking. But what they kept saying at the NAC meeting was public parking on private land, which to me, when you keep saying that means, they'll probably yank the public parking at some point when they realize they don't have enough parking for the residents, right? So me and, my boyfriend, he has a work truck, his truck, and then I have my vehicle. So we have 3 cars just between the 2 of us parked at our home at all times. A small 1-car garage is not very large, and most people don't park their cars in that. They use that for storage. So when you tell me you're going to give us 178 parking places for 78 units, it doesn't seem like there's enough parking for the public there.
So at these meetings, when you've been talking to Marcella Campbell's there,
she's their architect, and she's pretty much like their
the PR.
Their PR, yeah. She does all the speeches. They work with Ike Crumbler as well.
Whenever the Jensen Beach is communicating to the developer, to Marcella, what is the response from them? Do they seem like they're wanting to work with the community to?
Well, I'm working with Ike Crumbler to get a meeting with Marcella. It's a little tough with everybody's schedules. So I'm going to reach out to him again this week. I run into Ike quite frequently.
She's not been willing to meet with you so far?
No, she's willing. Just the time she's given just haven't worked with me and, the other person that's working on this with me, or my social media person. And
how has the Chamber of Commerce in Jensen, where are they sort of sitting with this?
Well, I went to a breakfast that River Light hosted a few months back, and man, Mr. Ron Rose, I could have sworn he was the developer for how hard he was pushing it. So, they definitely have, I think they have the chamber's votes for sure. Which, that's, a matter of opinion on that. But, like I said, I was like, I wonder if he works for the developer at this point, so.
Here, I'll pull up Ron here.
Yeah, Mr. Ron Rose.
Ron.
Yeah. So, which I'm working on arranging a meeting with Mr. Jerry Compton too. He's on the NAC. And like I said, it can be really difficult working around everybody's schedule to try to arrange these meetings. Because I have quite a few people in my group that like to be there. I have a social media person, and she likes to be present at most of the meetings so she can update our page and our community, because she's very good at that. And then, of course, there's Kiki. She likes to attend some of the meetings to kind of hear what's going on. But for the most part, due to scheduling, I usually end up going to a lot of the meetings on my own, just because it's hard to work with so many people's schedules at once.
How are you doing this?
How am I doing this?
'Cause you have a baby on the way.
I do. Yeah. Full-time real estate.
You have a job.
Yeah, full-time real estate.
How are you managing all of this and not?
Well, I like
going
to.
crazy?
I like to stay busy. So it's kind of funny. It seems like the more on my plate, the better I do, I guess. But
Cool.
It's a matter of, it's a passion project. So I make room for it. And then I tie it in with my real estate business.
Because it matters.
It does. It matters a lot. A lot of people ask me, oh, you're a real estate agent. Shouldn't you be for development? I'm not against development.
That's something I noticed when I ran, is there can be a little bit of a disconnect with folks about quality of development.
Correct.
Does this fit the character? There's a reason people want to move here.
Correct.
There's a reason people live here.
Right.
If you make here like
somewhere else,
everywhere else,
then what's the appeal?
it's not here anymore.
Right.
So redeveloping with similar density and height, but character.
Right.
So you keep
it's
what makes Martin County
like
different.
you said, it's the quality, it's smart development. We don't want to be Fort Lauderdale. We don't want to be Miami. We don't want to be West Palm Beach, and all those people are flocking up here because they don't want to be there anymore. So it's slowly moving north, and then you've got the people from the northern states that are slowly moving south due to their politics or their state issues or whatever you have it. We have a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of people from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. But, as a real estate agent, there's all sorts of different agents and all sorts of different ways of working with people. I build relationships. I'm a relationship builder. I went to Jensen Beach High School. Jensen's home. My in-laws have lived off Skyline for 30 some years now. We lost our dunes behind Publix to a community that is really not very good quality, if you ask me. It went up fast. There's flooding issues now in the Publix parking lot due to that community being built so quickly. Then you've got more communities coming up off of Savannah, and now Savannah Road floods. You clear all that land and you don't add a way for drainage, and now we've got all these flooding issues. So it just seems to me like we're not building smart. We're building quickly.
There's also constraints with the, like with FEMA. FEMA requires the new development that goes in to be higher than previous because of flooding. But inevitably,
that just floods the
the
rest
more-
of the community that's been there
you put it on a
longer,
higher
and the
grade,
roads.
that water sheds on everybody else.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, what was it, 2 months ago, I think it was about, we had that week where we just had nothing but rain, and all of Savannah was flooded for days. Like, you couldn't go down that road at all. Good Lord, the road to get to the small Causeway Bridge here in Stewart was flooded. I tried to get to Port Salerno. I couldn't get to Port Salerno for a client anyway I took. You know, and I've been here a long time. I left for a while and got my bachelor's degree in psychology in Mobile, Alabama, and I came back, and I don't ever remember us flooding like this.
Martin County historically has always had, the line was enjoy our good nature. We always had more green space than pick anywhere because of champions like Maggie or Chawa.
Yes. And it seems like, as these people are fading out because of age, or passing because of age, or just retiring, nobody's taking their place.
People are too busy working.
Right.
Nobody has time.
It's kind of become that hustle bustle. So I'm very blessed and fortunate in the fact that I have a business that is pretty flexible, and it ties in with politics, and it ties in with my activism. So I use that to my advantage, and I use my voice as much as I can, and my voice is getting stronger with the community.
You're just warming up.
But not everybody has that luxury. My boyfriend, he has a strong job, and he's the backbone of our household, and he works very hard to make sure that I can stay active in my politics, in my activism, in everything that I do. And so, again, not everybody has that luxury. So I think it's important for those of us that do to really use our voice and try to spur others to use their voice whenever they can.
Have you noticed that when you actually take on that responsibility and you start doing that thing, that somehow you end up with the time and the energy? When you're not, before you do it, you think there's no way.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well,
and then you get in it, and it's like you can carve out the time.
Definitely.
More efficient.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So again, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. So it just kind of aligns with when you find something you're passionate about, something that you love so much, it gives you that extra energy. It gives you that extra push, that extra why, so to speak. And when you're raising a family, I know I fought very hard to get back to Jensen Beach.
That's a good why.
It's a huge
Having
why.
Kids.
Huge. It's huge. I already have a daughter. She's 9. And like I said, I fought hard to get back to Jensen Beach. When I was in Ocean Springs and the Mobile area, I bartended in New Orleans for a little while I was finishing my degree. It's very hugely populated, and it's
not Martin County.
It's industrialized. It's polluted. So I fought for a good 7-8 years to get back here, and I come back here and I'm like, oh gosh, they're doing it here too, and we're such a unique community, and each little municipality here in Martin County has their strong suits. And as you see, it really just takes 1 or 2 people to start using their voice, and then everybody starts using it. And we start getting this unified movement going. So I think that's kind of what's happening. You're seeing it not only in Jensen, but you're starting to see it in Port Salerno as well, with the SOS group. So
what's going on with the SOS group?
Well, the SOS group, I follow them because they're fighting the same type of fight that we're fighting. So I've started following them to see, what they're up against. And it's something very similar. There's a developer, Crowley, I believe his name is, that wants to develop a lot of the CRA boundaries into something that you would see down in like Delray. He's wanting
since that worked out so good.
Right. He's wanting to, I've seen some of the renderings, and he's wanting to build like bars with apartments on top of the bars and like little rooftop bars. Yeah. And right. And Salerno's very special. That's a very old fishing community. a very, very old fishing community.
Very cool community.
And it's got a lot of character and history, you know, even more so than I think Jensen in some facets. So when I started seeing this SOS group, you know, I was like, I need to check out and see what's going on there too.
Who's kind of spearheading SOS?
Casey Cass. Casey Cass seems to be the kind of igniter of the group, but he's got such a great following. He's got so many people that have stepped up to the plate, so to speak, to kind of help run things. He's a very busy man. He owns Casco Tools. So he's busy. He employs a lot of people. He works a lot from what I can gather. And he's really kind of taken a lot on his shoulders to try to get the community united. And from what I can tell, it's working very, very, very well. Rocky Point specifically has become very, very active in the fight against Crowley. So they've really unified down there, and it's nice to see that. It's nice to see that. I would love to see Stewart start unifying against some of the development that's going on.
They kind of did because I'm here.
Right. Yeah, you've stepped up to the plate and kind of have said, you know, this enough is enough, because Stewart has grown exponentially so quickly. And Palm City, they have a group very similar to Jensen as well. And they're starting to fight, and they actually did just have a win
with the parcel,
the land.
That's spicy. That's a contentious issue, right?
It is because it took a lot of money out of the pot that's not going to be able to really be refunded. So I go to a lot of the county commissioner meetings on Tuesdays to kind of stay updated. And I went to the one where they discussed how that was going to be financed. And I believe they had to take out a loan with no interest for a little while or something like that. I think I missed the first meeting where they talked about the first half. So, you know, they bought the land. There was something about the land when they purchased it was purchased way higher than when the developers purchased it. So, you know, the community's happy, but also at the same time, where does that leave future fights, you know?
So it's contentious because there's a lot going on behind the scenes with the state. So one of the things that passed recently, one of the bills allows for land acquisition. So grant money for land act. But this particular, and I'm not deep in the weeds on what's going on with the county, but this is just my awareness of it was more reactionary. So instead of, you know, having that grant application in, getting that money in, and then, you know, shopping for what's appropriate land, the backlash from Palm City, and I don't want to burn anybody, but if you're in Palm City, Ed Campy's your guy.
Right.
And Ed Campy he is the champion of the, you know, affordable housing apartment thing. So, I digress.
Which is really what that group was against. You know, they didn't want all those, what was
apartments.
I think it was 90 units that was going to be right there.
Right. Somehow affordable housing always means apartments.
Right. High density apartments.
High density, a lot of height.
Not very well built, you know.
And so people got upset, and then instead of having a plan for acquiring that land, you know, they were trying to find money in the middle of a budget round where with budgets, you're just trying to come in on, you know, where it all balances, right?
Yeah.
And now you have this $4 million we have to come up with that hasn't been budgeted for this land. Otherwise, you know, they're going to wring our necks.
I think it was more than that, wasn't it?
Having more of a path of, okay, we want to, sort of like in the old days, right? Like,
it was very rushed. It was very rushed. It was not very, I believe the developers called them and only gave them like a certain amount of time to say yes. Like there was a deadline. So I think that might be part of it. But yes, it was very rushed, and it may seem like a victory, but on the back end, you know, where's that money coming from? You know, how are we going to resupplement that pot? What does that mean for the future CRA expenditures, you know.
And the other boroughs, right? Like, does that mean that?
Yeah.
I mean, why shouldn't Jensen be asking the same thing?
Right. So
why shouldn't Salerno be asking to acquire land and make it a park or whatever?
Right. And, you know, I have had meetings with a couple of the commissioners. I've had a meeting with Doug Smith. I've had a meeting with Commissioner Hurd. I've reached out to Campy and Jenkins quite a few times. I haven't reached out to Hetherington yet. And
she's cool.
Miss Hetherington,
You'll
I
like
haven't reached out to her yet, so she's on my list. Real estate's been pretty busy.
Good.
And that keeps me pretty busy the last couple of months. So got to do some better time blocking, I think. But
you don't have enough to do.
Right. So you know, my conversation with Doug Smith, who is Jensen's representative, Jensen's commissioner, was productive in some ways.
Yeah, how'd it go?
He seems not very active in our community for the most part, you know, and I think that's got a lot of...
Not active, or just doesn't share your perspective, or...
No, just he doesn't seem too active, honestly. You know, I'm glad he had a meeting with me. That was at least he
cool, yeah.
he at least he did that. That was great. Oh, for sure, definitely. He definitely could have, but you know, in my eyes, as our representative, he shouldn't. But what people should and shouldn't do isn't always what happens. So, but you know, I brought up the money that the state has, you know, for land acquisition, and he pretty much, you know, said that it's really hard to get funding from out of Tallahassee, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, does that really mean that we shouldn't try though? You know, can we at least try? You know, it seems to me like putting 80 units right there in the heart of our town just really doesn't do much for the community. You know, we don't really have many parks or green space or parking in Jensen. You know, traffic's rough.
So I mean, not to burn him, but it can't be. We don't really know how hard it is because the bill just passed, right? Like in July.
Right. You know, and that was kind of my question. I'm like, well, can't we just try though? You know, what do we do? How do we start this process to at least make an attempt? You know, you don't know until you try, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to fall a couple times before you succeed. So, you know,
and to their credit, this was Toby Overdorf was involved in this. 1379.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll burn people where I need to burn them, but to his credit.
Yeah. I would like a couple people in the Palm City group are working on getting meetings with some of the senators. I try to get in on that action as well. They're busy, so it's a little bit harder to schedule things with them, but overall they seem pretty receptive to trying to meet with some of us, which is great. But overall, I think that every municipality in Martin County is struggling with the same thing. Overdevelopment, you know, no infrastructure to handle it. You know, Palm City, their biggest scream was, you know, there's already traffic. Now you're going to put 90 high density units. What about parking?
Palm City's in deep because that project, it's going to be out west a little bit. Mm-hmm. There are so many humans. I've heard different numbers, but something like the population of the city of Stewart in that one location there, man.
Yeah, they've got a lot. They've got
coming
a lot
down
of
Citrus,
things.
going on Martin Highway.
Yeah, they've got a lot of huge things. There really isn't much land left in Palm City either. And now we've got that huge community that's about to be.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's.
Is that Palm City or is that Hope Sound? Because I know they've got one.
Oh, you're talking about.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah,
There's a couple that are huge. What is it? Oh gosh, I was just reading a little bit about this morning.
Kiplinger's in Palm City.
Story something that in the one in Hope Sound. So we've got a couple things, and they're all like very huge developments. Yep. You know, huge developments, and it just kind of raises red flags as to infrastructure, what we're going to do with all the traffic and all of the raising in population. Another huge thing is, you know, so I went to the legislative meeting,
nice
delegation meeting about a month ago. That was a good 3 hours long. That was very eye-opening.
Those are just, various organizations asking for money.
Yeah, asking for funds.
Right.
But it's important to know why they're asking for funding, right?
Right.
Because I like to think of all of this as a spider web. It's all connected. It's all important. And we had all sorts of organizations there asking for funding. You had the Alzheimer community. You had Cleveland Clinic there. And Cleveland Clinic was very interesting because, he said, we just don't have enough providers for the amount of people that we're supposed to be taking care of, specifically in the childbirthing sector. They do not have enough doctors for how many people are having babies. And, they spoke about how most of the babies being delivered are on Medicaid or state assistance, and the hospital just doesn't have the funding or the providers to provide for all of this. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it kind of branches out and it's all connected. You're adding all these high density units, but you're not adding the providers we need to take care of those people. Hospitals, workers, electricians. We need more jobs to handle these people, this influx of people coming, and they're not being added at the rate.
And worse than that is with SB 102, that bill allows, the whole point of that bill to try to create affordable housing is to convert commercial and industrial property to multifamily apartments.
Yes, and that's a huge problem.
So with every one of those, whoever planned out the municipality, when each parcel got made what it is, there was thought that went into that, and things can adapt, but this is a huge potential change.
It's tipping the scales.
You're effectively, the line I say is, you're making Florida, you're making places like Martin County the bedroom community for work remote, and I've had very not important people, but people who are really in the mix, land use attorneys and, the guys who are the fly on the wall when the plans are getting made, tell me that.
Yep.
And it's that Florida is to become the work remote for the Northeast, for, the country at large. And, we don't need as much commercial and industrial space. Well, what about your kids?
Mm-hmm.
Where do my kids work?
Right. Well, not only that, but not every job.
How do they afford to live here?
Right.
And they can't work.
Right. And not every job can be remote either.
Right.
We need our laborers. We need our electricians. We need our roofers. We need our plumbers. We need our doctors. We need our nurses.
Especially if you're going to add, 1,000 people a day to the state.
And
who takes care of these boomers?
Right.
Who fixes their house? Who puts their doors in, their windows? Who fixes their roof? Who fixes their cars? Who
takes care of the emergency calls? That can't be done remotely.
Right.
So we're causing a very, very huge problem that I can foresee really, really, really having really negative impacts on our state in general.
It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I do think what is saving us right now are the interest rates on loans, because as far as I can tell, if a developer can get financing, it's getting built. The thing that really is ever in the way is the financing, right? So this current moment in time, even though it's really hard for people to buy a house, it's also keeping development somewhat at bay.
Somewhat.
With that ability to change land use, and not basically stealing all of our commercial and industrial land out from under us.
Yeah. It's, the interest rate thing is very double-sided, and the prices of our homes have gone up so much too, so the value of our land and our homes is so high, and with the interest being high, that makes it hard for really anybody to purchase anything. Real estate's slowed dramatically compared to this time last year. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the boom from COVID too. We're having that trickle down effect. It's starting to pool now. We're starting to see.
And I'm wondering how many of those work remote people are being called back to New Jersey and New York and Connecticut to the office more, and maybe they're not renewing their lease, or
can only hope.
You know what I mean?
I mean, rent's so high
Maybe they're
right
just
now.
renting their house instead of selling it, or
Maybe. Well, what happened a lot during COVID is actually a lot of companies, like Zillow was one of them, bought up so many houses.
Oh yeah.
And when they do that, they're taking that house out of the
BlackRock
market indefinitely. That house will never be sold. It's going to be perpetually rented, and that rent is going to be raised every year.
Yep.
Every year it's going to keep going up. You know, little improvements done to the home, rent goes up every year. So it's interesting to see what's going to transpire with all of this going on. And I think that people have been kind of asleep up until this last year. You know, I think people are starting to wake up, and that's good, because when we're complacent, so many things are just pushed past us, you know, but when we start staying active.
I say to people, there are nights in the commission where, including the 5 commissioners, there's 10 people in that room that are setting policy, that are approving projects that will affect the city's now at not quite 25,000, but 22 or whatever it is. But that's 10 people making decisions for 20,000.
20,000 people.
You know, and the county's not even more people, and maybe slightly more people in that room, but pretty similar.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Until and there's always the people always say, oh, the meetings are too early, you know, there's no way I can get there, or I don't even know what's on the agenda. And I'm going to be there to fight for the normal people that are working, but you will have more of an impact on preserving what is beautiful about Martin County and the city if you're there.
Yep.
And the more people that will get activated, you know, not necessarily wait for that project to land on their doorstep, but the more people that will start showing up and having a voice, it makes a difference, because developers, the people who are there are the people who it's their job, right?
Yep.
The developer is there, or at least, you know, 2 or 3 of his land use attorneys from Gunster that he hired.
Yep.
You know, their PR person, their whoever. Those people are all suited up. They're on the clock.
Yep.
They're happy to be there. They're getting paid lots of money per hour.
They're getting paid to be there.
Right. And so if you don't have the normal people also in attendance that are speaking reasonably to why this should either be amended, or maybe it's not a good fit at all, or whatever, it only kind of seems like there's only one path. There's only one way that kind of seems
one
like,
side, yeah,
right, staff recommends, build it.
Yeah, it's easy to pass it that way when there's no pushback, when there's no confrontation.
Even not like an angry or frustrated.
No.
But just
a presence.
Another voice.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's always going to be the desire to, you know, build more, be able to flip it for a profit.
Of course.
Continue to get more dense and higher. And unless you have the alternative voice of people who live here, their families have lived here for 50, 60, 70 years. Hey, you know, don't go that far. Let's reel that back in.
Right.
There's no balance to the conversation.
No balance. The scales are tipped.
And for some of your other commissioners who are more, and I'm not speaking specifically to the city or the county, it's every county and city in Florida right now.
Yep.
But to the ones who are maybe more pro-development, or they're on the fence, when they're checking the temperature and they're feeling what's going on, it doesn't feel like there's really any issue with approving this or moving forward. Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I think this goes for most people. We're going to take the path less, what's the saying?
Water.
The path
of least resistance.
Path of least resistance. You know, like you said, if there's no pushback from the community opposing something, why not go with the easiest route? You know,
being involved in the process, right? Like, if it's going to be even close to you, right? If the traffic flows from this thing are going to affect you, being involved and having a voice.
And you know what's interesting is I don't think a lot of the community. As soon as you see that yellow
sign, like you guys did, that's cool.
Right.
You did what you're supposed to do.
We made a call. Right. But I don't think a lot of the community, or at least I know for a fact, you know, when we started our group, Quit Messin with Jensen back in March, which I'm working on trying to turn into a nonprofit. But
why?
Just so it keeps going, so we can stay active to create more community unity. Do beach cleanups, help with local things that need done. It's so much easier as a nonprofit to do things and to
pull resources
and to get funding to do community projects.
Cool.
So, that's
Good
something that I'm working on, trying to figure out how to turn it into a nonprofit so that we stick around for the long haul.
Yep.
And we stay active and more people get active and we become a big organized group that helps with all of our water community as well. Like our river coalition, I go to their meetings every 2 months. I try to be a face that everybody sees now since being with Quit Messin and Jensen, and not just Jensen, for the whole county,
I've said for a little bit now that so it was actually Marcella. This is where I got this idea. Marcella was there on behalf of, I can't remember the neighborhood, but they hired her to represent their complex.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's it. That's what should happen, because while we're talking and discussing even the issue, not everybody can be there. They're working, but they've given her, this is what we want.
They found a representative.
And then even while we're talking, we said something that she knew they weren't going to like. And I see her over there and she's doing the phone thing. And then she comes up to the mic and she's like, hey, that's no go. We want to see this.
Right.
And it was so perfect because in real time, while we're getting ready to make a decision, we're getting feedback from the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And there's no nobody's angry, nobody's yelling.
You have a community representative.
Yeah, you're not going to be, that person doesn't get dismissed. You have somebody who's there professionally to help represent. I would love to see that from all the neighborhoods, and
that's something that I'm working on.
Yeah. There should almost be like you're the ambassador for Jensen.
Well, that's I don't know if I'm really the ambassador right now, but something kind like of that. What I've ended up becoming. Right. I get calls and messages from people all the time thanking me. And, my response is always, I don't need to be thanked. I want to see more people active. I want to see you guys show up. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you want for the community, what the community needs. And I want us to be unified and standing up for our community. We don't want Jensen to turn into Fort Lauderdale, like I've said before. Mm-hmm. Jensen's special. So is Port Salerno. Stewart's special. Really, all of Martin County is special. And we're starting to see it just get chipped away and lost.
I say that in the context of, you pulling resources with a nonprofit. That's something you could potentially do, is have your neighborhood, your community represented. Mm-hmm.
I think every community needs to do that. I think every community needs to figure out how to get organized and have a representative that speaks up for the locals, especially because the locals ultimately are suffering a lot from this. The locals are getting priced out. They're seeing their community that they've known and loved for so long change drastically. And they want their children to be raised here. They want their grandchildren and their great grandchildren to know and love.
Be able to drive to work and not sit in traffic for an hour and a half.
Oh, don't get me started.
I want to be able to go to Palm City and it not take me.
Dude, just the beach.
The guy who works on my truck lives in Palm City Farms, and it took me an hour.
To get there. Isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame? I live 10 minutes from the beach, but trying to get to the beach in season, it's an hour and a half.
Newfield isn't even built yet.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. And again, if we allow the people with money to just keep handing that money out without voices standing up with reason to speak up for the side that's kind of like, hey, what about we only have a 2-lane road there? Or, hey, what about we don't have enough parking? Or, hey, what about how the drainage is going to work?
Listen, it would probably get me in trouble, but baffle boxes can never do what trees and vegetation and roots can do for drainage.
Like we've talked about earlier, we're seeing that problem in all the communities with flooding. And I mean, Florida, it rains, 8-9 months out of the year?
And it can be so intense so fast.
So quickly. And it drains so slowly already. And now you're adding all these developments. And they've got all these new requirements from FEMA, like you said, and they've got all their boxes they've got to check, but they don't think about the boxes that need checked for the houses that have been there for a while.
Right.
you know? So now all these people have lived here forever. Like, you know, most of the people that live off Savannah, they've lived there for 20 so years, you know, and now their houses are getting flooded out because they got new high density units going up. And it just doesn't seem smart, you know?
To me, the traffic is probably the most, obviously flooding and property damage is terrible, but day to day, you know, day in, day out traffic, right? And
well, yeah, we're turning into, it almost seems like we're turning into Fort Lauderdale or Miami. Like, who
what,
wants to commute a 20-minute commute, take them an hour and a half, 2 hours?
What I don't think everybody understands is that during the, you know, 90s, so municipalities interact with the Department of Transportation through the MPO. We have always historically said, let's keep our, you call it level of service. So that is how many cars can openly, safely use those arteries.
Right.
We have intentionally in the past kept our level of service poor. So you grade it A through E. Most of our roads around the, you know, the city and are, you know, D, F, whatever. So we did that because that was a way to limit growth.
Right, right.
So when the state would say you need, you know, more height, you need to go past 4 stories, you need more density. You look at places down south, and you know, I go to war when we start talking about going from 15 to 30 units per acre, right? That makes I boil, right? But down south it's 100.
Yeah.
You know, they're going 10 stories and 100 units and an acre, but we've intentionally kept our density and population lower with more green space by having really poor level of service on our roads.
Right, right.
That changed 2016.
Yeah,
Rick Scott, I think, changed that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you couldn't use the poor level of service on your roads to justify growth management. And so from that time until now, and especially with COVID, with so many people moving here, plus our desire to follow the trend of more dense apartments, you know, somehow single family homes and starter homes are just impossible, right? No way you could build one of those.
Yeah,
like, it's not like anybody might want to own
that's what we're being
a
told,
little starter home. But
yeah, we're told those days are over with.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm getting a little soapboxy, but so that some group or hedge fund can own that project and add it to their portfolio. That, who knows, maybe some subsidiary of BlackRock or State Street or all the stuff that you probably are seeing with big real estate.
They've got so many shell companies. It's hard to even track who actually owns them.
So we're going to get, and are getting now, hit particularly hard with traffic because of that.
Really bad traffic.
We're getting
it's
flushed
awful
with a lot of the population that's coming, and we're being forced through Gail Harrell and co with SB 102 to have more density, yet we really do not have the level of service. And you can't, these are 10, 15-year projects to get a road wide.
We don't have anything for it. Don't have anything like, you know, level of service, traffic. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have enough people working. We don't have, you know, and to me, I don't know why people aren't more concerned about the lack of care in the hospitals and the health system. To me, that is a huge issue, you know, huge issue. Doctors are overworked, you know, nurses are overworked. And I don't know why more people aren't concerned about that.
I don't firsthand know, right? My world is chiropractor. I'm not, not in the trenches on the floor.
Right.
So I don't know.
Like I said, when I went to that delegation meeting, there was a lot of healthcare there and they're all swamped, you know, and that was kind of an eye opener. You know, I try to go to as many of the political meetings, and everybody's like, why do you go to those? It's a waste of time. And I'm like, I don't think it's a waste of time at all. I don't think it's a waste of time at all. I think it's all connected, and I think it's important to look at all of it.
True.
So I try to go to as many as I can, and I move my schedule around to accommodate it. Some days it's easier than others, but that was an eye-opener. You know, we don't have enough funding for these retirees. You know, we used to be the retirement state. Well, now they can't afford to live here. So where are they going to go? You know what I'm saying? They're being pushed out of their homes. You know, there's no funding for them.
Something's got to give, because it doesn't seem like anybody can afford to live anywhere.
Right.
Like
It's not just here.
Are you going to go in the middle of the state? Like, it's probably expensive there too. Where do you go?
It's not just Florida either. Right. It's everywhere.
Nobody's selling their house or moving right now. Everybody's staying put.
Inventory's
low. Who wants
low.
to pay 8%?
Nobody can. It's too high. You know, I bought my house 2 years ago at 2.4.
Wow. Hats off to you.
You know, and everyone's like, "Whoa, why don't you?" You know, I'm like, I can't sell my house and get a bigger house. I'm like, are you kidding me? My mortgage is gonna be like $2,000 more.
Totally. Yeah.
With the,
if you sold and bought the same house, you would,
oh my gosh, and I've got 90 in equity in my house, you know, and at 2.4, I'm like, gosh, I'd be paying $2,000 more for my mortgage. My mortgage is already like $1,900, you know, like, you know, with insurance and taxes that have gone up, which
yes, they have.
They've gone up dramatically in St. Lucie and Martin County, and probably really every county, honestly. So, you know, and then groceries, everything's gone up, you know. So I packed my daughter's lunch, I packed my boyfriend's lunch, and I'm like, gosh, when did a box of Cheez-Its become $5?
Yeah,
you know?
How do you not spend $300 at the grocery store?
It's hard. You know, I used to just do one grocery run. Now I do like 3. I'm like, oh, I got to go to Aldi for my
Where's
cheese.
you
know, I got to go to Winn-Dixie for my snacks.
Yep.
You know, it's like planning out, go to Sam's, buy some bulk, have a deep freezer now. You know, it's like,
totally.
It's like all planned. You can't just, the days of just winging it are gone. I don't go to Publix barely at all anymore. So, you know, it's scary to see, you know, but again, that's not just a state level. That's a whole country.
Something's got to give.
That's the whole country.
Right.
You know, and now, you know, without getting into world politics, but now with everything going on abroad, that's going to affect us too. You know, that's going to leak into what happens in our market too. You know, it's a trickle down effect. So we're not going to see the consequences from what's going on in, you know, Ukraine and now Israel for another couple of years, probably another year or two.
I kind of live in a intentionally blissfully ignorant state. Mm-hmm. And this is my thing. Besides inflation,
it's best for peace of mind,
which is brutal, right? Like taxes and money, and mm-hmm. you know, you have less buying power. On average, if you just turned the news off and mm-hmm. just live your life, engage with your family, go to work, we live in the best time in human history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have air conditioning and Wi-Fi.
What's going on around the world isn't anything new.
We live like kings.
I mean, we're not living through World War I or World War II, right. Or, you know, when we were getting drafted and sent over to Vietnam, you know, I mean, again, what's happening now is not really different than what's always happened. And you're right. We live like kings. I mean, gosh, what do we even do before air conditioning here in Florida?
Nobody lived down here.
That's true.
Do you know the history?
That's true. Nobody was here.
Have you read The Swamp?
I've read Land Remembered quite a few times.
Yeah. Nobody lived down here. I feel like the first, and I am not a historian, but
right.
1860s, 70s, 80s, the railroad came in what, the 1880s, 1890s.
Something like that, yeah.
Nobody went south of St. Augustine for a long
time.
time.
Right. It was no man's land.
Right. It's swamp.
Yeah, it is. And it is. It still is. We're just building on it and have air conditioning now. So we're spoiled. We're spoiled for sure.
And unfortunately, the secret's out.
Yeah, we're totally exploited now. The time
everybody knows.
Everybody wants to come to Florida now. Everybody.
And it seems like the worse that New York or Cali gets. I don't know what percentage of what states end up here, but
yeah, it's New York is a big one. California is a huge one now.
I was hoping they'd all just get stuck in Texas.
Texas is getting a high influx too.
Yeah.
Texas is getting a lot too.
Yep.
Florida and Texas have kind of become like the dumping pots from these states running from a lot of politics really since COVID. Mm-hmm. A lot of states are emptying out, like New Jersey. Like I said earlier, we're getting a lot from New York and New Jersey.
Which I don't blame them. I could have had my business shut down, not been able to feed my family. I
right.
Imagine,
you can't blame them. Right. You can't get, you can't get mad at them for wanting a piece of paradise.
It's heaven.
But at the same time, you know, it's starting to cause a lot of issues here, I think, too, the influx of people moving, you know. And Senate Bill 102 is just a monstrosity of a bill.
I have like Facebook ward with Gail, and her name's Karen Sweeney.
Yes. Yeah. Facebook ward. Yeah.
It brings me a lot of joy to antagonize them. But my thing is, why not give some provision to where it either just affects larger municipalities, like give a population threshold.
Right. Well,
where you say, you know, municipalities under X thousand number of people can be excluded, or you can choose to be excluded if you are a smaller beach town or whatever.
I think that SB 102 is good for some different regions, like
Orlando,
Tallahassee, Jacksonville,
large places that
Miami, Fort Lauderdale. You know, it is a good idea for some of those places, but it's, oh my gosh, it's like a horrible idea for places like Martin County. It's just completely exploited us. And it's a shame, you know, and most of the people that live here have lived here for generations.
Yep.
And now their kids can't afford to buy a house, or there's no inventory, or there's no jobs for them, you know? So it's just really sad what's happening. So
and you're selling out their jobs, man. If they can't have a commercial space to have a small business, or
rezoning things,
work for even a larger industrial, I think like boats and, you know.
And the fact that that bill takes the power out of the local commissioners is scary, because the local commissioners are supposed to be our representatives, our local go-tos. They're supposed to be who knows what's best for our community.
That's what irritates me the most about it is it's like, okay, fine, I'll run, I'll do it. I'll get in the mix. I'll fight the good fight. I'll help try to protect this place. And then now that I'm in, you're going to subvert my ability to do that.
Right. You're taking that away.
Now I have to try to figure out some behind the scenes creative ways to defend. And I am representative of how the people here feel.
Right.
So you just subverted Martin County, the city of Stewart's voting base of people, how they feel. It's not even me. It's I'm the person who's representing what they want. And you just said, I can't do that. And that's crazy. You're the elected official, Gail.
It's awful.
You know, like,
you know, but I've been told from multiple people that her hand was forced, you know, and I don't know how true that is. You know, I'm not sure. I'm just a little person down here trying to make waves, but
it's SB, right? So it's a Senate bill that was born in the Senate. Pasadomo, her buddy, that was their baby, right? And they're trying to, it's tough, right? Because if you would have just called us in the city, Gail, if you would have just called, somebody could have told you, we already just tried to do this, right? We just spent the last 4 years. It's what got me elected. We approved 3,000 units of development, mostly apartments that people are furious about.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're not affordable.
No, they're not. And that's the thing with SB 102. It's not regulated.
No.
So it's just a guise for these developers to get in the door, and then they do whatever they want. They're not held accountable to anything, you know?
I will do my best to make sure that if one of these, which I don't think they want to do these, by the way, but if one of these projects does go in, they're supposed to be accountable to the local municipality for 40% of those being, you know, whatever that threshold is.
Right.
I've heard here excluding your utilities, it would be like $1,500 a month. Which, good luck, you know. But I'm going to make you look over your shoulder for as long as I'm in there.
Right.
I'm not going to let you build it and get it certified on day one.
Yeah.
And then we're just not going to, you know, follow up with that. And part of it, too, is so you have 30 years of looking over your shoulder where the municipality, you have to demonstrate to them that 40% of those units are being rented for that price. 2 is, at the end of it, that commercial property, the zoning and land use never got formally changed because it never came in front of the commission.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still sitting on a piece of commercial or industrial property that just happens to have a multifamily complex on it that they chose to go that route because maybe it was more profitable and they could sell it to a hedge fund. But now that hedge fund is sitting on 30 years later, a non-conforming use.
Yep.
If I'm in the commission at that point, or somebody like me is, and you now have a non-conforming use apartment building that's 30 years old, and you need to pull permits to do anything? No.
Yeah.
No. Go
And
pound sand, tear it down. Let it be commercial.
We need our commissioners to take the path of more resistance. We need them to
defend what's good. Man.
We need them
the
to
people who
stick
live
up
here.
for us. And, you know, I think that we're seeing, you know, so Herd's been in for what, 20 something years. Doug's been in for 20 something years. We're starting to see the communities waking up, and they're like, you guys aren't pushing for us anymore. You know, you guys are taking the path of least resistance. And
there's just such a gap between, and this is part of why I want to do these podcasts, right? There's such a gap between the information and the conversation that's happening in the municipal, the understanding, the engagement with the developers, what's going on with the property, and then what just normal people who are working know.
Right.
So,
well, like I said
there
earlier,
needs to be more of that bridge.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, people, like when we started this group in Jensen, everybody's like, we didn't know we had a say.
Right.
We didn't know we could come to these meetings.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
Totally. Yeah, you can.
And we're like, yeah, we need you to. So we got our NAC meetings from 5 people to 150 consistently. The last 2 or 3 meetings, I've consistently had at least 150 people packed into that small little building in Jensen to show up to these meetings. Port Salerno is starting to consistently do the same. Palm City as well. So I don't know about Stewart. I need to become a little more active in Stewart and Hope Sound. But so far, I'm in pretty good touch with Salerno, Palm City, and Jensen.
What's the current state of the project? I don't know if you know, but the project that's going on in Hope Sound. Do you know the name of it? I'm out of the loop totally on it.
Is it Stony Brook or something like that? I want to say something like that.
Because that'll probably get them involved.
They just had a post about it this morning. I just saw a post about it this morning. Was it the TC Palm? I want to say it's Stony Brook, but I could be wrong.
Find something here.
I could be wrong.
Stony Ridge?
No, I don't think so. I could be wrong though. I could be.
But is it? It's in the application process. Do you have any idea?
That was actually on my to-do list to check into. I know that they kind of put in a rendering for it, and now they're kind of talking about it. It's still in the very, very beginning phases.
Cool.
I do know that. So that was actually something that I'm working on. You know, like I said, I'm slowly working on infiltrating every municipality. You know, I think by the time next year is over with, everybody's going to know who I am. I'm going to be a nuisance to all the right people. Right? All the right people are not going to like me.
Wasn't that Marjorie Stoneman Douglas? Be a nuisance.
I'm going to be a pebble in everybody's shoe.
Good. You should be. You should be.
So, you know, I know my boyfriend's like, aren't you tired? And I'm like, I'm just getting started. I'm like, this baby's going to be born running. So, yeah, I was actually going to look into that. I'm looking into the development in Jensen, right by that marina there, the four fish marina. Mm-hmm. Palm City's got a pretty good advocate group, so don't worry too much about them. Casey Cass has got Port Salerno covered, so don't worry so much about them. Yep. So I'm working on trying to figure out Hope Sound and Indiantown. Believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff happening in Indiantown very quickly as well. And Indiantown's kind of like way out there and in its own little world, and nobody really pays attention to it. And in the last year or two, it's like exploded, you know.
What's cool about them, because I get to get a kind of report on where they're at with the joint school board meetings.
Yes. Yeah, I saw you at that meeting. I was there.
They'll put up like their what they're approving for development.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's mostly ag land,
mm-hmm.
going from ag land to single family homes is somehow doable, you know, versus here it seems like we go from
well, they're not very developed yet. So so
it gives them this ability to build starter homes,
right?
Which is really cool.
Right.
I was so proud.
Right.
Which sounds funny, but
so you're right. They have more space. They have more, you know, and it's a little bit less desirable for a lot of people because it's so far from the beach. But we're overbuilt here by the beach. There's nothing, you know, as a real estate agent, I'm like, you know, I've got all these people I'm shopping for, and There's just no inventory in this area. There's just nothing. So
I've noticed very few homes are going up for sale.
And people aren't selling,
Right.
People were selling a lot a year or two ago to, for whatever
just
reason.
Cash buyers now, basically, or what?
No, that was a couple years ago. We were having people moving with paying way over market value for houses. Now, it just depends. I've got a lot of clients that are cash. I've mainly dealt with cash people. That's just kind of how it's panned out for me.
If it's 8%, it seems like that's,
and I've bartended locally. So I've met a lot of different people through that. That's really kind of how I've grown my business organically. So I haven't really had a lot of first time home buyers, but I think Indiantown is a huge one for that, so I've started trying to pay more attention to Indiantown and Hope Sound because virtually those are really the two areas that have space left to build. Right. So obviously I would like to see a little bit more comparable housing being built in those two places. So yeah, I've had a few people from Hope Sound reach out to me about this new development in Hope Sound. I've had a few people reach out to me about Indiantown. So I'm starting to kind of try to shift my gaze a little bit to those areas and pay a little bit more attention to what's going on in those spots. So still fighting for Jensen, of course, but...
What do you think's the future for Quit Messin with Jensen when you have your vision of what you guys are going to be doing?
Oh gosh,
long term.
Like I said, I would like to make it a nonprofit and like to see more people kind of head it with me so that I can kind of not take my sights away from Jensen because Jensen's my home. Like I know everybody in Jensen. Like I said, me and Pepperoni, we know the whole town. We're always out and about, Everybody knows Pepperoni. Everybody loves Pepperoni. So, we're always out and about. Pepperoni's on some of my business cards even. So everybody knows us.
That's awesome.
I would like to become something like that in these other municipalities too, where people know who I am and they know that I'm here trying to wake people up and trying to get people involved and unified to fight the good fight. So I would like to see Quit Messin with Jensen become a nonprofit. I would like to see them stay active with the Jensen community. I would like for me to not only stay active with Quit Messin with Jensen, but hopefully try to find people in these other municipalities that are wanting to get active as well.
So if people are looking at yellow signs going up and they're feeling like they are too small of a person or one person, or they just don't even know where to start,
call that number.
How do they get a hold of you?
Oh gosh. You just type my name in. I'm everywhere. I'm a real estate agent. My name and my phone number is public. I'm everywhere. It's not hard to find me. Type in Alaura Macpherson online. My phone number pops up. I'm with Next Home Treasure Coast. My Facebook's public. Everything is public for me. And I encourage people all the time, reach out to me, send me a message, send me a text.
The Facebook
call
group,
me.
Quit Messin with Jensen.
Quit Messin with Jensen. I'm an organizer on that, so I mean, I'm everywhere. So it's not hard to reach out to me to ask questions. And I encourage people to call those numbers on those yellow signs. Ask the questions. Some of these people that work for like zoning and the NAC, they like seeing us get active.
Of course.
They're liking that people are showing up because they've been trying to get the community active for so long and they haven't been able to do it, And
I think it's a little bit of a misconception is it can feel like when that project, you see that yellow sign, it can feel adversarial, right?
Oh yeah.
I wanted to say this too, is it feels kind of like what are you doing? Why are you messing with my home, right? This is where I live. Why don't do that? Right. But truly the people who work, I can tell you firsthand in the city, right? I don't really know a lot of people in the county, but I can tell you everybody that's working in the city wants to do a good job.
Yes, they do.
Like there's not a secret cabal that is within City Hall in black coats, plotting the destruction of your town, right? So
it can feel personal for people.
It can. But if you are willing to be at those meetings or get involved with Quit Messin with Jensen and learning about what's on the horizon,
become educated.
I am sure that the county, just like the city, would appreciate hearing your perspective.
They
right?
do. They do.
Why, because these are just people.
Yep.
It's easy to put them up on a pedestal.
People
and
with jobs.
Right. And also smash them when they don't do what you want. But they're trying to do a good job. So your input is constructive. It's helpful.
Yep.
And Quit Messin with Jensen is trying to be one of those bridges to help guide your elected officials.
Right. Right.
In properly representing and giving voice to
their community and their district. Yep.
So
Yeah, no, you're right.
Getting involved, not feeling adversarial, not feeling frustrated.
Right. We don't want to be the pitchforkers.
And a lot of that can come from being passive aggressive, right? So you watch that yellow sign go up, you didn't call, man, I'm too busy, you know, Doug should just do what I want, you know, but if
he's not a psychic, he doesn't
know. He
doesn't know.
If you'll talk to these people, if you'll you know, show up to the meeting, if you'll be another reasonable, calm. Do you remember Parks and Rec? Do you ever what? Yeah. Yes. That's what I think of sometimes. It's the vast majority of people are reasonable and constructive, but every now and then like, what? What are you talking about?
Listen, our last NAC meeting, I had people in the back hollering and screaming, and I had to go on the page later, and I was like, listen, this is not how we're going to conduct ourselves. No. Nobody's going to listen to you when you're screaming obscenities at them. That is not how we do this. We're going to be calm and collected, and we're going to come from a place of reason. I was like, there's a way of relaying your anger without being angry.
Constructive criticism.
Like, yeah.
And listen, your elected officials, for the most part, are able to handle it, right? They would not have thrown themselves in the limelight if they couldn't take a beating.
Right.
You know,
for sure.
It's fun. Right?
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh.
But you will get more accomplished if it's constructive.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's like what I like to remind our group. I had to go on the page and I was like, okay, guys, if we're going to be doing this, then don't even show up.
and trust me, that's coming from probably the most contentious adversarial person that's involved in municipal government. That's why I can tell you.
Yeah.
I get that totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all want to scream and we all, you know, all of us are getting angry,
You're
but
doing what to my street? Are you kidding?
Right.
What?
You know, we all are upset, but nobody's going to listen to somebody that's hollering at them. You know, it's very important to be calm and collected and try to, you know, that's something that I take pride in about myself. I'm a very
professional,
calm person. I try to look at both sides and all angles. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, stop this development. I'm like, okay, listen here. I'm like, you know, they bought that land.
Exactly.
They have property rights.
They do.
You know,
but they don't have a right to what's beyond the
right.
code.
But see, people, they will try. They will
try.
So
right?
You've got to have people that hold them accountable to what ordinances, you know, for example, Riverlight wants to, and I don't knock Riverlight. I told them at the first meeting, I'm like, I love this idea, but for tradition, not Jensen Beach, you know. I'm like, it actually sounds like a great little community, but not for Jensen.
How? I already asked you this sort of, but how do you feel like it could be adapted?
Oh, goodness.
What could be done specifically?
Well, for sure, we don't want any dredging going on. And there's not enough land for them to build their restaurant. If you go to the Quit Messin with Jensen page, there's Kiki posted some really good renderings of satellite images of what they're proposing and what's there currently on the riverside portion of the land. And they're proposing this huge restaurant on the riverside. They're proposing a shopping plaza, and they're proposing like 3 townhomes or chateaus or something like that to be over there. And there's no land there. So in order to be able to build that, they're either going to have to move Indian River Drive, which we know they can't do.
What's up with the mangroves?
Exactly. Yes. There's a few issues about what they want to build on that riverside that I have a problem with. We don't want it dredged. We don't want our mangroves. What was it? I had a news interview a month or two ago, and they interviewed me, and then they interviewed Marcella too. And she's like, we're not going to touch one mangrove. And I'm like, ha, now I can hold you accountable to that. You said that on television.
I hate to be black pill, but I don't think it's going to, Whoops.
you know, she literally said, we're not going to touch one mangrove. And I'm like, oh, you're not going to touch one mangrove? Okay, I'm going to make sure that I keep replaying that.
It'll at least get PR, though, if they do.
You know, so they want to build all of that on that riverside. But what I keep reminding people is, like, they bought 3.3 acres of submerged land under the water. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me you're not planning on dredging? How else are you going to build there? They keep saying, we're not going to dredge. We're not going to dredge. Well, no offense. Developers are infamous for saying they're not going to do something or saying they're going to do something and then doing the total opposite.
How dare you?
You know what I'm saying?
I would never lie about what could make me more millions of dollars.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
So, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, you say that now, but I know what you're going to do. You're going to do a switcheroo. I know what you're going to do. We've seen it done before. So we've got all the river group advocates are active in this. You know, they're all doing their thing behind closed doors. We're going to make sure that they can't dredge, that they don't dredge, you know.
I mean, look at this beautiful rendering, though.
You have that pulled up. Yeah. And yeah. And where's the parking for that shopping plaza and the employees at that restaurant? Huh? Where's that parking?
These people are clearly. This is a walkable community. This guy's going to work.
And
he's got his briefcase.
And no offense, but who wants to walk to Publix? I don't want to walk to Publix. Listen. I don't want to carry my groceries from Publix. Look, okay.
Ed Campy's on the stairs.
I'm like, what is this? It looks like Fort Lauderdale. I can't even handle it.
People are drinking wine at like 10 a.m.
Oh,
this is it.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Someone's on a moped. Apparently, we're in Sicily.
Oh, and don't you love the boats? That's not deep enough for boats.
Yeah, what do you know about the boat thing? So that's something I had heard is, how deep is it? It's not that deep.
It's not deep at all.
So how do you?
It's not deep at all. They have to dredge. They have to dredge. They have to dredge to build there. They have to dredge to extend the seawall. They have to dredge to make it dockable. Right? Which you can see there. They have dock.
I guess you could canoe there.
And then they're trying to tell us they're going to have a park there too. And I'm like, where? Where's the park?
On top of the apartments.
I'm like,
no,
where?
I found it.
Where's the park?
Right there.
I'm like, I don't see anything.
And apparently they have an aircraft carrier over here. Yeah.
I know. And I've had some people be like, this is so beautiful. And I'm like,
your park.
Do you live in Jensen Beach? This is not for Jensen Beach.
There you go. There's your park.
We don't have enough space for this. I don't know what this is. This is not going to work. Oh, yeah. There's just, and again, you know, I'm not saying no river light. I'm saying, come on, be reasonable. This is ridiculous.
So you're saying more green space, less density.
Yes.
The height is what, 2 stories?
And don't mess with our river. We don't want that.
There's at least 3 on that one.
You're not going to build on that riverside. There's not enough space. You can't dredge.
Formally submitted a project for application yet?
They submitted something and the city returned it. They have not come back to
county.
County. They have not come back to the NAC with their adjusted rendering yet. I'm not sure if they're going to be there tomorrow or not.
Okay. Yeah, you should plug the meeting. Jeez.
Yeah, tomorrow.
What's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow, the NAC meeting, I actually need to look into that. Me and Kiki need to see. They were not present at the last NAC meeting. The last NAC meeting, Mr. Schilling was there from planning. He was there. So we got a good opportunity to ask questions. I actually haven't reached out to the NAC board to see if Riverlight's going to be there tomorrow or not. And if they're not, who's going to be there?
What happens at an NAC meeting? A neighborhood advisory
committee.
So
the neighborhood advisory committee is the beginning steps for our CRA boundaries. So every community, I don't know about every community, but in Martin County, Stewart has a CRA, Jensen has one, Hope Sound has one, Palm City has one. And the CRA was designed to, it's an area that was designated that it was in blight and it needed improvement to
that's the CRA thing everywhere, yeah.
Right. To
bring up the property value in a blighted area
and add value to the community. Right. So a lot of the CRA, so Palm City CRA added a park with some parking and some green space. So we were hoping to see that, being that this land is pretty much all that's left in our CRA. So our CRA in Jensen runs from the roundabout in downtown Jensen to the roundabout at the causeway. All that land in between there is the CRA space. So as you can see, if you were to pull up a satellite image, the only land that's left in that CRA is the land across from the church that was bought by, I can't even remember his name, but he's a NASCAR driver. He doesn't have any plans to do anything with it as of right now, but he bought the land that Taco Tiki sits on and the fruit stand sits on, it lures and so on and so forth. And then the land that Riverlight just bought. There's no more land left now in the CRA.
All I'm saying is, if Henry was alive, heads would roll.
Right. Oh, it's
From
rough.
Snuck. Heads would roll.
Yeah, it's rough. It's not ideal. So now so there's another thing too that we can kind of talk a little bit about. There's funding for the CRAs called TIF funding, which is some of our tax dollars allocated to paying for improvements for some of this stuff. So one of my questions for the developers was, and they've yet to answer me, was, are you using our tax dollars to develop your your luxury development?
So part of it is behind the scenes, right? Municipalities are in a statewide race to increase their population densities for tax dollars. So the shared proportionate tax that comes from the state is based on population density.
Right.
So beyond your like ad valorem, you know, it's a pretty hefty chunk. Depending on each municipality, it's different, but these are hefty chunks of money that staying smaller population and less developed and more rural heavily impacts your municipality's ability to operate sustainably financially. You're either looking at like having to have taxes go up. You know, this is kind of the idea. I'm giving you the behind the scenes, right?
Right.
What you'll see is whether it's, the city's kind of facing this, right? We're being surrounded now by potential massive development with Newfield, that Kiplinger property in Palm City, with what's going to be going on in Hobe Sound, potentially, everybody around us is developing, and we're kind of built out,
right?
Our density. So we're going to be receiving proportionately less as these fill in with people from the state. So that's part of psychologically what's going on with, whoever's running municipalities, commissioners, your city managers, your county managers, your financial guy, financial services, whoever's the head of that, they're thinking we need more height, more density, so we can try to keep up with not only just Jacksonville and Orlando and Tampa and Miami, so we can keep up with, local Port St. Lucie and,
right.
Pierce and
yeah.
So that's part of the environment too, is the financial side, right? So from a fiscal fiduciary responsibility standpoint from your municipality, they're thinking, man, I need this CRA to get built up.
Right.
I don't want to park here.
Yeah.
I want money.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Even though, and this is my big argument and counter to even that counter, is taking care of people from a services, water, sewer, roads, all of it. It's not a linear, it's not 10 times more expensive to take care of 10 times as many people. It's exponential. And that's why often you see municipalities stack people up, because it's cheaper to service people in a high box than spread out.
Spread out, yeah.
But it's always exponential to take care of more people. So short-term thinking is, cool, more people, more ad valorem, more proportionate shared tax revenue from the state. We're going to have more money. But long-term, it's wear and tear on your roads. It's the pipes are starting to break down, and now I have to service twice as many people, and now I have to build way bigger infrastructure for and I need more grants.
Right.
And the problem with this is it's a never-ending chase.
Yep.
Right? You have, and it's getting increasingly more expensive, not just because of inflation. If the state is giving out that proportionate sales tax and grants, right? Even for land acquisition, this applies to that too. If you have a parcel of land, and it's part of why that land cost $4 million, right? Is it's the county's paying for it. It's not a private. It's not, if a private party bought that land, it would have been much cheaper.
Right.
But especially if there's grants available for it, it's going to drive up the cost of that land. Anytime there's a government contract, we do RFPs and we pick the lowest bidder, but still, right? If all of your guys who do stormwater drainage and build sidewalks and do roads, if all of your municipalities are getting state grants in their CRAs to do that at millions of dollars, what should cost, I don't know, pick a number, is going to be 10%, 20%, 30%, 50% more expensive, because that same guy who does that can bid to Port St. Lucie and what's going on in Tradition. And now instead of a municipality just having a guy that can, or a group that can fix a thing, everybody's prices got driven up.
Yeah.
So more people is actually exponentially more. It's actually way cheaper not to do that rat race, because you'll never be able to keep up with what contractors are going to charge, especially when there's grants driving up the price of all these things.
Yep. It's
I
true.
know that's kind of a rant, but
no, it's very true though. And you know, I think that sometimes they don't think about that, the long run. No. They think about just the forefront, the short term, instead of the long term, right? You know, and you're exactly right. It's okay, cool. We're going to get more tax dollars. However, you're going to end up with way more expenses down the road. And then you're just going to have to figure out how to get more tax dollars to cover that.
Right,
you know,
grants.
so it's like it's a rat race.
And when everybody's getting grants, that's going to drive up the cost to do the project.
Drives everything up. It's like you said, a rat race. It's a perpetual wheel that we get stuck in, you know.
And so my argument would be the best way to protect yourself and your municipality to be stable. You know, we talk about resilience with stormwater and flooding and things, but financially is to not be in the rat race.
Right. Yeah.
Don't be in the rat race.
Yeah.
Just maybe the whole city doesn't need to be complete streets and, you know, walkability sidewalks, and you need functional roads so people can drive without potholes.
You want to know what's funny about the walkability? It's so hot here.
I'm gonna rant again.
So when people start talking about walkability, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm so tired of hearing about walkability. I'm like, walkability what? In the 1 month of the year that we won't have a heat stroke?
So you're this was new for me too, right? Like you're encountering kind of the current religion of urbanism, new urbanism planning. Is you go to school for planning and you learn a certain kind of how you make a city, right?
Right.
And this could be a long conversation. That mantra, that religion, the tenets of that religion are, you know, as few cars as possible. Everybody's walking. Mixed use, right? Because if you put commercial there, you want somebody, because inevitably, right, the guy who works in that business is definitely going to be living in the apartment across from it. There's no way he would need to commute, because that's just, you know, and it's all of this small scale. You look at like Winter Park in Orlando and some of these newer places that have come up in the last, 10, 20 years, and you'll see that new urbanism, that mixed use, people living above. But the problem is that's not what Martin County is.
No.
That's not, we're not Portland or some place in California. Like, who lives here? And this has been my argument with people. It's boomers. Boomers are who's moving. We've known the boomers were going to come here for forever. That's why, mixed with COVID, it's overwhelming to us right now. But a lot of these people are my patients.
Right.
One of the plans, right, the goals was to make Osceola, my street, walkable only, right? Just bikes and walking. Be so cool, utopian, beautiful. Except that my business is on Osceola, right? And a lot of the people I see are boomers, and they don't want to even park in a parking garage over at Wells Fargo or some other part of downtown and take a tram over and be sweating in August to come to my practice because they can't just pull in my parking lot.
Well, also time's kind of a factor too.
Right.
Time's kind of a factor in that too.
And so
nobody has time.
This is why I'm telling you this is the answer to traffic, right? When you talk to the, why, and I'm asking questions like, why is it this dense? Why don't you have enough parking there? Well, what about the traffic implications of this on that road where there's no level of service? Well, we're going to motivate people away from cars. We're going to make this community walkable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What? Who's going to and I'll give you one example. This is my mother-in-law, right? She's up in Orlando, like Winter Park, and she gave this example of trying to go get juice, right? So she orders on her phone at a juicery what her order is to go pick it up, and she ends up doing laps around this parking lot because whoever planned it didn't do the appropriate math for the mixed use side of the apartments above, the commercial needs of the patrons below.
Right.
And so she can't find a parking spot at like 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she does enough laps to where she finally gives up and goes home and buys a juicer.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
This is like the best example I could even dream up.
It lacks realism.
What we're doing
in our
fantasy
it lacks realism
of urbanism. It's like, who lives here? Yeah. Do they want to be able to go to dinner and go, to the shops? Do they want to go to Matilda's? What do they want? Who lives here? How do they want to be able to engage with small business? And let's accentuate and maximize that.
Right.
And not try to stuff some mantra or worldview into a town that is diametrically opposed to your planning brain. Actually plan according to who lives here and what,
Yeah, and I bet they don't live in walkable communities themselves.
The planners?
Yeah. The developers.
The developers here,
they don't even live here.
They live here right now.
For now, till their development's built.
But they also own their cabin on 5 acres in North Carolina.
Yeah. Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Right now they enjoy, when it's seasonally, but ultimately they're going to cash out.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah.
Because Martin County,
they're there to sell it, and then you won't see them again.
It's a business opportunity. It's
course.
Booming. Everybody's looking to here now.
It's beautiful.
Let's take advantage of it. And then I'll move to my
totally being exploited.
Ranch.
Totally being exploited.
Right. But if you have kids, I want to die here, man. Like, I love this place.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kids, if you never want to leave, that's unacceptable.
No, yeah.
I'm not selling Stewart so I can leave.
Right. It's bad for us. They come here and they make their money and they cash out and they leave. And that's what I'm saying. It's ruining our people that love this place quality of life. Jensen's my community. Martin County is my community. I've grown roots here since I've been back. I've been back 5.5 years. And in those 5 years, I've made a lot of new friends. I've made a lot of acquaintances. I know a lot of business owners, small business owners. I make it a point to go out of my way to meet new people. And I'm trying to branch that out. And these developers are coming in here and they're chasing out our small businesses and making it unreasonable for our locals to live here, and we're starting to see a lot of people having their second homes here, and then those homes sit empty half the year.
Right.
It's just not.
Which isn't a terrible thing for traffic.
No, it's not terrible for traffic, but it
got
does.
Its downsides, but traffic is not one of them.
Well, except for when they come back.
Yeah, sure.
When they're here and you can't get to the beach.
It's whenever you have the license plate on the front of the car. It's like, it's over.
Oh my gosh,
It's
my
over.
9-year-old daughter, she's like, so bad. She's so bad. Levy, that's her name, Levy. It's Leviana, but we call her Levy. And Levy's like, go back to New York. We don't want you here. Go back to Massachusetts. You can't drive. I'm like, oh no.
Listen,
I gotta stop.
I'm gonna tell you
talking.
something about Levy. Right.
Driving.
That's what I was gonna say. Levy didn't come up with that. Levy heard that.
It wasn't me. It was her papa. It was papa.
Levy's heard that a few times.
It was papa. She came back from papa's house and she's like, oh, go back to New York. And I was like, Leviana, where'd you? She's like, well, it's true. We don't need them here. And I'm like, oh, Lord, papa. But mind you, papa's been here 30 years. So papa feels justified in his
That was like
in his complaints.
the hardest thing going door to door last August was how many people I would say, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm Christopher Collins. I'm running for city commission, I'm trying to slow the growth down. People, it's like so many people that were in that demo of, salty, been here a long time, were telling me they were going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
They were moving.
I'm getting a lot of that, yeah.
Because it's too far gone.
It's gotten out of control.
My God. No, you got to stay. You got to fight. No, it's.
I'm over
They've
it.
already ruined it.
I'm over it.
No.
Yeah.
If you leave, there's nobody to say no.
My argument for that is, where are you gonna go?
Right. Vero.
It's happening.
They're gonna do it in
It's
Vero.
happening everywhere. Where are you gonna go?
Melbourne.
Gonna go to South Carolina? Ooh, it's happening there too.
Yeah.
Like, where are you gonna go?
There's a huge flush of our, Floridians that are moving up to
Georgia,
2, 3, 4,
Tennessee.
5, 10 acres.
Yep. But it's happening there too.
Totally.
Like I said, I went to school in the South. I know a lot of people still in a lot of those states, and they call me complaining about it as well. It's not just here.
And that's why for me it's Alamo. Like, this is it, man.
Yeah. No, we're staying here to the end. We got to fight.
This is it.
Got to ignite people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the NAC, so for the CRA.
What's going on tomorrow? What time is it? Where? What?
5 o'clock.
All the details.
5 o'clock is our next NAC meeting. So it goes in NAC. It has to pass through the NAC board. And then it has to go after they pass the plans for the...
What do? They make recommendations?
Recommendations.
To the LPA?
To the local planning agency. So that's like the next step. And then the local planning agency goes through their meetings, and then they make recommendations.
Have you talked to Jim Moyer yet?
I have.
Dude.
I have talked to Jim Moyer.
He's legit.
I have talked to Jim. Very busy man. Very, very busy man. And he has actually heard.
He's got a backbone.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He's Herd's.
Yes, he is.
Herd's LPA representative. So he's not for, if just so that people know I'm not talking out of my ass. He's definitely not pro what they're proposing on the riverside.
He's going to be pro listening to.
Oh yeah, he's
community.
great. Yeah,
at this point you can't really be for or
but,
against a project.
He even is like
evolving.
he even is like, what the, he's like, that's not what where are they gonna put that? He's saying the same thing we're saying, right. Pretty much. He's like, where, how, where, how, what are you gonna do to that land to make that buildable? Mm-hmm. He's asking the same questions we are.
Yep.
Which is, just so people know that, like, I'm just not talking out of my ass. The river coalitions and all of the river advocacy groups that we've reached out to have the same questions we do,
Yeah.
So
anytime you're going to build on the water.
Right. Well, also too, we want to know where they're, what they're going to do with the water and the drainage too.
Where do all those cars, leak their oil? Where?
Yeah. What's I actually have a man named Mr. Crewer. He's an agriculturist, and he is a professor at a university. I want to say in Georgia, I think. I can't remember, but he lives off Indian River Drive part of the year, and he's actually so educated. It was so great talking with him because he's like, giving us all of this knowledge about.
Give me names of people to have on here.
Yeah,
Like
definitely. I can give you. I can definitely give you some. I can definitely give you a good
that
list.
I can learn from.
I can definitely give you a good list, and Crewer is definitely one of them.
Awesome.
But he was giving us this education about how the water should be retained and what, you know, the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. And his thing was, he doesn't, you know, what they have proposed, he's like, not going to work, you know? So that was a question we had at the last NAC meeting that River Life was present. We're like, you know, how are you going to improve this? So hopefully when they come back with their, whether it's tomorrow.
You're going to know tomorrow. You're going to see a different kind of a project.
I'm hoping they're there
or
tomorrow.
You're going to see the same project repitched.
Right. I'm hoping they're there tomorrow. That would be great. If not, they're going to be back in another 2 months, I guess.
Why wouldn't they be there?
Well, we were thinking they'd be there last time and they weren't. Really? It would just mean they're not done with their...
But the NAC meeting is about Riverlight, no?
No. Not necessarily.
These are just standard NAC meetings that meet.
They have NAC meetings every 2 months.
Got it.
Every 2 months, the first Wednesday of the month, every 2 months, and they talk about different things in the CRA.
Just to
know
what's going on.
Yes, yeah. This is
not even with
marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
That's what I keep telling my people.
Great.
Keep showing up, not just for Riverlight, but for everything, because they have these meetings every 2 months. And then, you know, there's different things talked about and different things. It could be a small business making some kind of proposition that's in the CRA or something like that. You know, it's always gonna be something community based. And then they move their recommendations when it comes to developments to the LPA, and then the LPA goes through it with the fine tooth comb, and then they make their recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners.
And I want to say this is people really need to understand that those recommendations are huge.
They are.
You showing up.
They're very big.
And you being involved in what those recommendations are, because with each layer of the process, you know, at the LPA meeting, it's going to be the NAC recommends. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And very, very rarely do I see like other commissioners in the city fight staff recommendation or, you know, LPA recommendation.
Right. It has a lot of weight.
Once it's sort of established, it kind of is a thing, and you might pick at it a little bit, but it
has a lot of weight.
You being there, you speaking to that, and you being involved in how that augments and what it is.
Yeah, you can kind of think of it. You can kind of think of it as like a clay mold. Mm-hmm. You know, you want to be there to help make the shape and the form of it.
The first sort of imprint.
Yeah, and it's
anchor.
important to
call
get
it an anchor, right? That's now going to be the thing.
Yeah, you want to.
But if you only show up at the LPA or the commission meeting,
it's already rolling.
You're kind of like
it's already rolling.
Right.
It's already been
behind,
shaped quite a bit.
And it's not going to go well.
Right. So it's important to be active in the whole process from the beginning to the end. Mm-hmm. So NAC is the first steps for the CRA, and then the second steps the LPA, and then the LPA goes to the BOCC. So. You know, and it's the whole board votes, not just the district for that CRA. It's every, you know, it's every municipality in that county. So, you know, that's why we've tried to reach out to every commissioner, see what their stance is, or just have a conversation. And
so you mentioned that you felt like Doug wasn't as involved, maybe. I don't want to characterize it the wrong way, but as maybe you personally expected or Quit Messin expects.
We just don't see him present at a lot of things.
So,
you know, like
is part of the goal to get a new butt in that seat? I mean, that's kind of a forward question. Is Jensen maybe looking at encouraging some other candidates to at least run so that there's some,
I think
not that you got to get rid of Doug, but even that, you know, maybe there's some, we're paying attention now. Like there's some discontent. Maybe I need to pay attention.
I think that comfort breeds complacency. I think that Doug Smith has been commissioner for a very long time, and he's done some great things. And, but he's been there for a long time. And I think that it's time that we see some new ideas. We see somebody in that seat that's more excited to be there, so to speak. That's more excited. And look, I don't have any issues with anybody personally. Doug Smith's done great things for our district.
I think generally term limits are good.
I do too. I do too.
Get
Absolutely.
fresh blood, long enough that you can make an impact, but not long enough that you get entrenched.
I do not think that somebody, and I don't, and even with Gail Harrell, gosh, she's been there for a million freaking years. We need new ideas. We need fresh views.
From what I understand, she's termed out. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, from what I was seeing, and I think that's great. And I think the same thing should be for our county commissioners. You guys have terms in the city.
Yep, you get
Why don't we have
three
terms
rounds
in the county? Doug Smith's been there for so long. And I think that maybe his job's redundant to him now. When you get a new person in, they're so excited. They're so excited to advocate for change, to pay more attention to what the people want, like he was when he was first in, right? So my mother-in-law she's the outreach coordinator for the...
I mean, were we even born when he was first in? I don't even know. How long has he been in there? 20 years?
20-something years. Yeah, we were born. We were young. But my mother-in-law, Lori Swift, she's the outreach coordinator for Hibiscus Children's Center, which is in Jensen. It's the shelter for severely abused kids. It's one of the only types of shelters for... I used to be a social worker when I first moved back down here. It's one of the only shelters for severely abused kids in the state. There's only a few of them. And they get like the most severely abused kids. So they do a lot of funding, and Gail Harrell's very active with the Hibiscus Children's Center.
Good job, Gail.
And Doug used to be pretty active, but over the years, my mother-in-law's like, yeah, we just doesn't even return our emails anymore. So like I said,
all right, so who's running?
Jim Urillo.
Who's Jim?
Jim Urillo is a long time. He's lived in Jensen his whole life. Him and his brother used to own a fireworks company years ago. He worked with the fire department. He also worked
What did he do at the fire department?
I think he was a volunteer, but he worked there for years. He still has connections in the fire department. He worked with the old hospital that was in Stewart before it was Cleveland. He's done many things. So all within this community. He has some very interesting ideas, and he's very community based.
Like what?
He wants to preserve Jensen and preserve Martin County. So like we've talked about.
I need to have him on. I know you can't speak for him entirely, but
yeah,
just curious
definitely.
In your conversations with him, what he's been saying.
Yeah, he wants to see us try to preserve what we can, and he's not against development. He wants smart development. Ask more questions, educate ourselves a little more, listen to the community a little more, advocate for the community a little more. So, he's really an interesting guy to have a conversation with. He's got a lot of interesting things to say. So he's going to, he's already turned his paperwork in.
Oh, so he's legit. He's official.
Yep. He's already turned his paperwork in. So we're working on getting that going for him. We're still a little bit early in the game.
I mean, not really for the county. Like you really...
Yeah.
You need to get going.
It's a good time. You need
to start going door to door if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
The city, it's not as many people, but...
Right. County's a lot.
Big.
County's a lot.
So... If you're serious about it.
Yeah. So...
If you're even considering unseating an incumbent...
Yeah.
It's like door-to-door time now.
It's go time.
It's go time.
So we're working on getting that going and funding and so on and so forth. So yeah, so hopefully he'll be a good contender for whoever does decide to run, if Doug Smith decides to run again or not, or whoever else might, again, there's still time. There might be more people that are going to put their names in the hat. We don't know.
I will say, nothing against Doug. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do want to unseat an incumbent, the worst thing you could do is have a bunch of people running against him.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get 2 people or 3 people running against Doug. Everybody's going to still vote for Doug.
Right.
So you really want to, if Jensen's serious, really make sure you pick a good person.
Yeah, I had
to run against him.
I had kind of put out
which it may be that guy Jim. I don't know. He may be a little early, and somebody else that's better. No offense, Jim. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But maybe Jim's a guy.
I haven't heard. He was the only one that reached out to me.
Cool.
with interest in running. I had put my feelers out months ago.
Right on. So you've been on it.
Months ago, put my feelers out. Everyone's like, well, why don't you run? And I was like, well, technically I don't live in that district right now, so I can't run. Otherwise, I probably would have attempted. But it's just not a good time for me. You know, for one, I don't live in the district. For two, I'm pregnant. It's a lot. You know, there's a lot in it. And hopefully by the time I'm ready, you know, everything will fall into place correctly, you know, if I decide to go that route. But, you know, I had a lot of people, you should run, you should do it. And I'm like, it's not an option for me, you know. So I tried to find somebody that would be a good option for the community, that would have a good voice for the community, somebody that's been present in the community.
Even you secondhand being involved in him running, you're going to learn a lot.
I've learned so much. Sometimes I come home and I'm just fried. I'm just like,
yep.
But I think it's a good thing. So yeah, hopefully we can get Jim going.
There's a very interesting effect that an election has, where you kind of see where all the different interested parties lay.
Right.
You know, you can see where everybody's intentions are and motivations and who's financing who. I mean, you can literally look at the sheet of paper for who donated to whose campaign. Like you can see everything.
I have the whole donor list for every.
And it's so interesting to look at. And
it is.
And a lot of people who may, you know, they may virtue signal during the year on one side or the other. When it comes to the election, you'll know who's on what team.
Yep. I've learned a lot. Like I said, those donor lists are long, very long. Yeah. And it's funny, you know, you start digging into things. It's funny when you see, you know, where everybody's allegiance and so on lies and support.
There's, you know, not to get overly reductionistic and say that there's two sides or anything. There's, with every single agenda item that comes up, with every possible, there's just different interests. Like, you know, who cares about what? There's financial interests, and you're trying to balance it all out with each thing. But there does seem to be, it's been historical, and it sort of still is the case. The, you know, chamber, the business, the developers, the land use attorneys, the folks who are trying to build more dense, higher. There's that contingency, and then there also seems to be, it's like a class of people which actually are less numerous than the other, but happen to be very involved.
Right.
And the other group, I would say, is generally the people who live here and have lived here for a while, you know, that really love the tone and nature of what this place is. They want to preserve that. They're okay with development, but not overdevelopment. The traffic makes them insane. And except for some of the brand new people that are landing here that go, what do you mean? This is way better than Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
What's your problem?
Yeah.
Why are you so negative?
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
You know?
They haven't been here from the
Besides the
beginning.
new people, which those were interesting doors to knock on. You know, it's like, I'm trying to slow development. What do you mean?
What development?
Wait, are you from here? Like,
where are you from?
No, actually, I just moved here 4 months ago. Cool,
like,
that's awesome.
That's
Don't
great.
tell anybody else, please. But
yeah.
this is normally we're not building so much. Like, this is not good, you know. So
yeah.
But that's kind of the two camps. Is, you know, who, I don't want to say profits from development, but in many circumstances it is, who directly benefits from, you know, more of that versus who just lives here. And
right.
So if you're going to unseat somebody who's firmly entrenched in that network, it's got to be grassroots.
Yep.
And there has to be a public, let's interview him on here or whatever, you know. People need to know who this guy is. They need to see his face. He needs some brand recognition. He needs to be able to tell the story.
He's to tell his story and
Yeah.
why he's here and why he's doing it.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when people get those ballots, they're going to go, okay, I don't know that guy.
They need to know his face. They need to know him.
I know Doug. And at least I know Doug, you know.
Yep. They need to know his face. They need to know him. And that's what I keep telling them. I'm like, it's great that they know me.
And
But
maybe
they need to know you.
and I don't know Jim, right? Like I know you like Jim. Maybe Doug's a better candidate than Jim, but Jim should be doing everything he can to let people know who he is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He needs to get out there. Yep. So, yeah. Yeah. So we're working on that.
Because when it comes time for the actual, candidate period, it's like almost too late.
Oh, for sure.
For the county.
For sure. Now's a good time to get it all going, to get everything, to get your foundation set.
Yep.
And then you're really ready with the new year to run. You need to, like I said, you need a strong foundation.
And I'll tell
What's
you.
your story? What are you wanting to do? What's your goal? What sets you apart? What makes you different? Why are you a good choice?
And I'm not trying to pick fights, but there's 2 things you don't do in Martin County forever. Maybe 3.
Yeah.
There's 2 things you don't do. And this is why my whole platform was clean water, slow, responsible growth,
Yep.
low taxes.
Low taxes. Yeah.
Because you don't overdevelop Martin County.
Yeah.
You don't raise taxes.
Yeah.
So with all those yellow signs and assuming that they start knocking down, one of the things that I think helped me get elected was these giant concrete structures that weren't even painted yet, that were 4 stories, at the base of Veterans Memorial Bridge, that Indigo one. That was like concrete, ugly at the time.
Yeah.
And every time somebody drove by that, they'd go, "What is that?
Yeah.
What is
this?
going on?" And it very well may be the case with, I don't know where different projects are, but between traffic and the development, that people have pent up in them enough frustration to go, they raised my taxes and now what is this? What are they building?
Yep.
There may be enough there.
Yep.
If he's a solid candidate and he gets that message out.
Yep.
To have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even running, even just going for it is energizing for the people who live here.
Yeah, definitely.
It is going to get attention. You may see Doug at more meetings, because he's thinking like, okay, not that he's not doing a great job or whatever, but,
yeah,
if somebody at least wants to run against me, maybe I need to
step it up.
Listen to this about what's going on over here or whatever,
Yeah, be more present. Yeah. Like I said,
and I actually, it made, people may not want to hear, but I actually like Doug.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
He's,
I don't know him personally.
He sort of represents to, I think, a lot of people, the entrenched politician in Martin County. But I sit on the MPO board with him. Dude's smart.
Yeah, he is. He's very intelligent.
He's been around for a long time.
No, he's very intelligent.
He knows a lot.
Yeah, he does. He does.
And so I do glean a lot listening to him.
Yeah, I know. He's very intelligent.
Navigate projects.
He's a very smart man.
He knows a lot.
Yeah, he does.
He throws a lot of historical context.
He loves history.
When we're talking about.
Yeah, he's very active in history.
What happened here before in the past. So he's he's been at it for a long time. Maybe we do need new blood, but he's not awful.
Yeah, no. Like
you may want to punch me in the nose if you live in Jensen.
No, not at all. No. I don't think that he's absolutely terrible. I think term limits are a good idea. I think that when you're in something for so long, like I said, comfort breeds complacency. I think that when you get somebody new in there,
nipping at your heels a little bit too.
Right.
If there's a threat that you could get unseated or you only have so much time, I think that's healthy. Competition, right? Like in a free market.
Yeah.
If you just have a contract and
why
do a better job?
Whatever happens, we want the outcome to be more positive.
We want people who live here.
We want the community to feel like it's being listened to again. Mm-hmm. Whether Doug gets reelected or Jim gets elected or whoever, we want to see change from what we've been seeing. And it doesn't matter who does it.
True.
It really doesn't. It's just we need to see some change,
I'll say until the people who are in those seats are more concerned about what the average person who lives here feels, until they're more concerned about, not normal people's a funny way to say it, but the average human being that lives in their district versus, how the developers feel or the state feels or the land use attorneys or until they're more concerned about, and the only way that happens is when they start to land on what developers want more, that they lose their seat.
Right.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
That when they start to transgress from caring most about what the people feel like, which is their job because they're the elected official or represent those people,
Right.
then they're always going to go with, you know, the special interests and the unions and the, you know, so until we make them nervous, you know, you make me nervous enough, right, to do my job truly, which is represent you. Maybe not everybody does.
Right.
That's in those seats.
Yeah. You know, I think Hurd and Doug have been in the longest. Pretty sure. Out of all of them.
Probably.
I think.
Dude, we're at 2 hours.
Yep.
I told you it's fast, right?
It is fast.
So let's do one last plug for the meeting tomorrow.
Yep. Tomorrow's
when?
NAC meeting is at Jensen Beach Community Center, which is across from Crawdaddy's at 5:00. And then Quit Messin with Jensen will be at the Hoffman after the meeting to sell some T-shirts and to just kind of talk about the meeting and
regroup, game plan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think we covered a lot.
You can come back in the future and give me an update.
I'm sure I'll have plenty for you.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep.